Look at human history, and you'll notice a relentless pattern: groups forming around a unified belief, only to splinter into scattered creeds and false idols. According to Islamic theology, early humans started with a baseline state of understanding. God established a primary agreement with them, often called the primordial covenant. But generation by generation, populations alter that agreement. They lose sight of God's rights, and instead of maintaining that singular focus, they elevate rivals and physical idols in his place. The psychology behind this drift is simple. External lures, described as devils, combine with scattered internal desires to hijack human attention, eventually severing people from objective truth. This creates a severe theological dilemma. If human nature leans so heavily into this spiritual amnesia, how does a divine creator keep the original message alive? The historical record reveals a recurring cycle of forgetfulness. Left alone, the truth fades, requiring continuous external intervention to survive. God's response to this amnesia was systemic. He refused to leave creation without a binding proof or a clear path, so he dispatched an unbroken succession of messengers. Instructing, this diagram illustrates an interlocking verification system. Across this timeline, each earlier prophet explicitly named the one to follow, while each successor validated the messenger before them. And even when the multitudes who denied them were massive, the chain held. As generations proceeded, ages passed, and fathers were succeeded by sons, this verification structure continued to operate without a gap. Divine guidance reveals itself as a highly engineered, interconnected historical failsafe, built specifically to preserve the truth across millennia. The prophets did not arrive demanding blind, unthinking obedience. Their operational method relied heavily on reason. Their core mission was to stir the buried treasures of the human intellect. They needed to force humanity to remember the blessings they had taken for granted. To build their logical case, they pointed to macro-level empirical evidence. They directed people's attention outward, toward the immense raised roof of the sky and the vast, sprawling earth laid beneath them. Then they brought the focus inward, using deeply personal realities to humble human arrogance. They highlighted everyday means of livelihood, the biological inevitability of aging, and the strict appointed timelines that bring every life to an end. By combining the macro and the micro, the prophets functioned primarily as awakeners. They used the observable universe to execute an intellectual rescue operation, curing humanity's spiritual amnesia. By the time the final message arrived, the people of the earth were deeply divided into scattered creeds. They were actively distorting God's names and wrongly likening him to his own physical creations. The arrival of Prophet Muhammad was the fulfillment of a millennial-old divine promise. It was the expected climax of the succession. This data visualization shows how previous historical paths converge into a single focal point, representing the final message. Because his distinguishing signs were thoroughly documented by the prophets who came before him, his arrival was entirely anticipated by the system. His primary objective upon arriving was to rescue a population trapped by their own dispersed desires and to guide these scattered creeds entirely out of misguidance. Through his station, he successfully transitioned humanity away from ignorance, anchoring them firmly back to the clear path established by the original primordial covenant. The final message stands as the definitive victory of continuous divine logic over human forgetfulness. It permanently cemented the path of the awakened intellect for the generations to follow.